All right. 3, 2, 1. Bre Hoy. Thank you so much for joining me on Life of Chance podcast. I am lucky enough to be able to be with you here today in Japan having this conversation. Thank you. How are you?
I'm going well. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited for everyone to get to know a little bit more about Bre Hoy because I think she's a bit quiet in the old social world. So I think if people want to get to know you, it's hard for them to know who you are other than like a couple of snippets on the Wallaroos page. So keen to get Life of Bre Hoy in the public eye. We're going to start with some quick fire questions to ease you into it, warm you up, and then we'll roll into some more questions.
Sounds good.
Okay, first of all, nickname.
Oh, had many nicknames, but Bre or Bre Hoy is probably the one that sticks the most.
Yeah, and what's your current nickname? Because I think there's a new one floating around.
A current nickname for my family here in Japan is Buddy. And it's really grown on me, actually.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because you definitely, back in Australia, have been Bre Hoy. Like there's never been a, we don't just reference Bre, we reference Bre Hoy. And now over in Japan, a little bit of Buddy.
Buddy. That's me.
Really like it. All right. How old are you?
I am 23. I have to think about that one.
First rugby club.
First rugby club would be the Coffs Harbour Snappers women's team.
Was that 15s or 7s?
That was 7s, actually. I don't know if we have 15s at the moment, but yeah, definitely was a 7s game.
And when were you in the club?
That would be 2019. So yeah, the year after finishing school.
Cool. What sport did you play before rugby?
Loved all sports, really. Gave everything a go, from swimming, surf life saving, soccer, but basketball was probably the main one. Grew up spending most of my years in the basketball stadium down at Coffs Harbour.
Nice. And where did your basketball take you? Like what sort of level did you get to? Did you have big aspirations for basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. Basketball was the sport I wanted to represent my country in. I loved it, did it every day of the week, thought about nothing else. So I played, I think, New South Wales country level, and then obviously representing the Coffs Harbour in our sort of state league competition for a few years.
And in that basketball realm, were you when you turned 19 and were playing 7s, were you also still playing basketball?
No, that was actually the first year where I gave basketball a little break. 2019, I was just finished school and I was like, just going to see what's on the cards for this year, work a little, see where we want to go. And then, gave rugby a go and haven't looked back since.
Amazing. Debut for the Wallaroos, when was it?
That was against England in the 2023 first game of WXV.
Very cool. And you came off the bench or you started?
Started.
Amazing.
Yes.
Did you have any heroes or role models growing up?
Yeah, I had plenty of role models, I think, in the sporting world. I think I loved every sport, and there was definitely, I could probably rattle off a number of women in all the different sports that I really looked up to, whether that was the way they held themselves off the pitch or the court, or whether it was how good of a player they were or teammates. So but then, yeah, obviously I've got many family members that I can consider as my role models too.
Yeah, nice. You when you started rugby in 2019 at 19, I don't get the sense that was the first involvement in rugby. It may have been your first time playing, but you definitely grew up in a family of rugby. What was your involvement in rugby before playing?
Yeah, I think you could probably ask a few people at the local rugby club. Ever since I was walking, I was running around the rugby fields on a Saturday, as my family was heavily involved in the club, and whether that's a cousin or an uncle playing or coaching. So I was that little kid running around, kicking the ball at halftime, or climbing all over the scrum machine. So yeah, definitely wasn't my first introduction to rugby. Loved watching it growing up as well. But yeah, just wasn't able to watch women playing, and especially 15s on free to air or anything like that. So
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you were around rugby and you played basketball, was it an intentional decision to not play rugby growing up, or was there just not an opportunity?
there just wasn't an opportunity. I mean, that rule that comes in once you're a certain age, you couldn't play with the boys anyway. So I was very much wanted to be sport was a massive part, well, is a massive part of my life, and especially when I was growing up. So I wanted something that I could, build on and do all the way through, rather than get excited about and love and then at a certain age completely stop. So I think that was a big determining factor as to giving it a go. Mind you, we did the touch and Oz tag coming through as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, as you said, like, you can't be what you can't see, and to not have the women's game hugely publicized, it doesn't make you feel like you're missing out on something. You turn up on a Saturday to watch the boys or the men play, and it's just something that you're involved in, but you don't feel like there's something that you can actually do until you see that opportunity actually come about. And I suppose that's only really appeared since the Olympic sort of push. What was that,
2016
16 being the first women's inclusion of the sevens, and then that growth has sort of happened since then.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also getting a bit older, obviously the sevens then brought the attention. I mean, I was enthralled by rugby after that. I was watching anything and everything I could, but then it was it just that pivotal moment then opened my eyes to those ladies at the local rugby club who had been playing for years. They'd been, out on the backfields playing a game of sevens, or, traveling hours. And I think when in 2019, when I got to experience that for the first time, I think that was the real turning point for me and wanting to get involved in rugby and not just playing it for a year and then going back to basketball. Was these ladies who just absolutely love the game, would show you the ropes, show you that they're organizing everything behind the scenes for the men's team as well, but still absolutely loving the game and the friendships they get to make as well. So that's something that really hooked me.
Yeah, and so when you played for the Marlins, you said? No,
the Snappers.
Sorry, controversial, I know.
Oh, dear.
Sorry, all the Coffs rivalry I know really exists.
Oh, no.
For the Snappers, that was playing sevens, and then soon after you ended up moving to Sydney. Is that right? Was the Sydney move was for university?
Yes.
And from that taste of rugby in the Snappers environment, you then knew that was what you wanted to try in Sydney? Or what, how, when you got the taste for it, what was where did you think it was going to take you?
Yeah, well, when I played in 2019, I had always known that I was going to be moving away the next year, not knowing exactly where, but for my university, and nothing else was really impacting that decision. So when I first moved to Sydney, I actually had no idea I was going to pick up rugby again. And I think a big factor was was being sort of in Coffs Harbour. It was a bit removed at the time from any rugby pathways or anything like that. So whilst I had the best time playing it, I couldn't picture myself progressing through the levels or what the pathway might even be. So I was like, if the opportunity ever came up again, but it was just in the back of the mind kind of thing, get uni started and that sort of stuff first. But yeah, obviously my Pa, Des, he had a mate at Sydney Uni, and he told me you're heading down to training. I think shortly after I'd moved to Sydney, and to join you girls at Sydney Uni and give it a go. And I was quietly very scared, but yeah, I'm so thankful I did, and yeah, it's led me to here now.
Yeah, amazing. I realize that these quick fire questions are not particularly quick, and we've gone quite we're only on like question 3 or 4, and I have quite a list that changed, but that's all right. Here we are. Roll with it.
Different just different podcast.
That's it. We don't follow conformity here. Hobbies outside rugby. What do you do when you're not playing?
Oh, hobbies outside. I am just a fan of any sport, so I love to watch it and all that sort of stuff. But outside of sport, I love art. I love museums and galleries. I love a bit of history as well. I'd say those are my main hobbies, and I love just exploring and traveling.
Yeah, cool. Favorite music or song that you're listening to right now?
Oh, favorite music. This one always gets me. I like to think I like a bit of everything. My favorite artist would have to be her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about the closest I'm gonna get.
Okay.
I'm not good at decisions.
What about like the last song that you've had on repeat?
Had on repeat. I probably couldn't even give you the name of the song. I could sing it for you, but
go on.
No.
Fair enough. We'll stick with her.
Yeah.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
Well, having this conversation in the car the other day, again, another decision that proves to be quite difficult. But for some reason, I can't get a prairie dog out of my head.
And why?
Oh, why? I don't know. I've seen a photo of them, and they look like happy little cute animals. And
describe for the people that are listening back home or right now what a prairie dog might look like.
I'm trying to remember what the sound. I know, I've seen it on the internet, but they're like these tiny little like
pygmy. They're like
dogs, or
like teacup pig size.
Yeah, but they're like a little. I don't know. That's like a little. What did I say? Like a groundhog or a hamster or something. Yeah, kind of like a chipmunk, like a bit bigger than a chipmunk. But they go like Yahoo, something like that. And I don't know.
There's just something.
Call me a child, but that's just something about it that I'm like. Oh,
so they make interesting noises. They're a little bit quirky.
They're a little bit different, yeah.
All right. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Biggest pet hate in a camp environment. So something that people do that kind of just grinds your gears, that you're like, just stop. If I could say something publicly, it would be stop this right now.
In a camp environment, something that I'm trying to think. What
I mean, I can think of examples that you might use from a roommate perspective. Maybe like picking up your own stuff, doing your own washing, being an independent person.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. When someone forgets their washing all the time and just asks, no, here it is. It's when your darling roommate loses their washing loop and has to put all of their clothes on yours for the entire rest of the trip.
Yeah, that sounds annoying. Probably need to, pluck up the courage to talk to Ferg and get a new loop, hey?
Do something, I don't know.
Yep, nice. Beach or snow?
Well, beach.
Beach,
but the snow is exciting.
Yeah. You choose beach every day, but the snow for the novel factor.
Yeah.
Early
height.
Height. What does that mean?
Yes,
in Japanese. Early morning or late night?
Early morning.
Night in or night out?
Oh. I would say majority probably a night in.
Yeah,
But there's the odd occasion where night out.
it's really necessary.
Yeah, it is necessary.
Birthday or Christmas?
Christmas. Absolutely.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs. No question about that.
Break my heart. Have you, interesting question, have
Ooh.
you had any surgeries for rugby?
For rugby?
Like, or sporting injury related?
No surgeries relating to sport. Injuries, but none requiring surgery.
Thank you. Touch wood.
Thank you.
I'm just going to dig into that because it's a really simple opportunity.
Right.
So no, you have not had any surgeries for injuries, but you have torn your ACL.
Yes, I sure have.
Walk me through.
2022 pre-season, 3 weeks out from Super W, trial game, ruptured my ACL. Obviously quite devastating.
Trial game, or was it a sevens game?
It was a trial game.
Okay.
No, not the sevens game. That was someone else. But yeah, trial game. Ruptured my ACL. It was a clean, just ACL, so none of meniscal or MCL, LCL, any other damage to any other ligaments or bones, which was, I guess, lucky in a sense.
Yep, in a sense.
So just a complete rupture of my ACL, which then gave me the opportunity to consider a conservative approach, which is called the cross bracing protocol. So I was given the option between surgery or this protocol. It's quite new at the time. And not many people in rugby had actually undergone the protocol, not in the women's game yet, at least. So I sort of took a leap and gave that a go. Obviously you have to qualify for this protocol. So mine being a clean ACL rupture, I was eligible for it. And yeah, just so happened to get some really great results from it. 3-month scan showed that it had completely healed itself, and then 6 months it was almost back to 100% looking. Obviously had a long way to go before getting back onto the field. But yeah, the actual healing of the ligament itself ended up working out really well.
That's awesome. And so the whole process ended up taking you just around the 12-month mark, am I right?
Yeah, I didn't play my first full game, until the 12-month mark, which probably I was going to do anyway, regardless of how quickly or how well it had healed itself. How
did you go doing everything with a brace on, like 24/7?
Oh, it was not gonna lie, it was a pretty tough, the first 3 months, especially. This brace, I was at 90 degrees for majority of these first 3 months or so. And that was sleeping, that was in the shower, that was no weight bearing at all, just on the crutches. And it happened to be a very rainy time in Sydney during that. So I was slipping around, falling over, making a fool of myself. But shout out to roommate Caitlin Leaney. She looked after me very well, and I think made that whole situation a lot easier on me.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, firstly, to take the chance and risk not risk, but I suppose it is a risk to go through that conservative method when it is so new as a system. Secondly, to have the willpower and mindset to stick to it, because so many people would say yes in the theory of it, And then on that day where you're like, I just need to straighten my knee or scratch it properly or something, like there would be so many tempting days to be like, well, it's not going to hurt it if I just move it a little bit, but the risk is just so high.
Yeah.
So the strong-willedness just to be able to follow through with the process when the brace is able to be taken off. I think that's the biggest part for me. Is like, you think, okay, I have a surgery and I have a cast on or whatever, and like you're forced not to because you can't remove the cast without it being known that you've removed the cast.
Yeah.
To have a brace on that is attached by freaking Velcro.
Yeah.
Like, you could adjust it and no one else would know.
Yeah.
And that willpower is just unreal. And then to make it back and, go through the leaps and bounds and the huge progression that you've been through from a pathways perspective in that period is just, it's super exciting. And I guess all of the dedication and persistence and strong-willedness has paid off, which is that's the biggest win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Had a great team and family and friends behind me, supporting me the entire way. So yeah, big shout out to all of them as well.
And I suppose I also want to touch on like the sacrifices or the decisions you have to make from a life perspective, then like traveling for work, being able to stand up at a job, not playing sport, not potentially going out because there's too many people around you, bumping into things, not doing things that you love, like going to the beach. Like there's sacrifice to your life, not just to your sport, but your life for those 9-ish months. Huge.
Yeah, definitely. Luckily for me, my work was really great. They actually moved me down to a position where I would be seated rather than standing, which was a massive help. And yeah, couldn't thank them enough for that, and how easily they were willing to help me out with that. Yeah, for my university, I actually, if I had have missed a fair chunk of it by having surgery or something like that, not that it was the contributor to my decision, but I would have actually had to pause my degree and it would have taken me another year to complete it. So yeah, getting around on crutches, actually trying to teach people how to do an exercise or a movement was quite the interesting experience. But nonetheless, I again had some great people around me, making sure I could do it the best I can. But yeah, it was just, I think it was a pretty shifting moment in like, nah, we're gonna do this 100% because we have goals and aspirations after this. So we may as well not only do it properly, but then make yourself better for it, physically, mentally, and emotionally, definitely.
Yes. Gonna change gonna go back to my final couple of
Quick
fires.
fire.
How do you sleep when you're in bed? Are you a back sleeper, front sleeper, side sleeper?
I'm a front sleeper, one arm under the pillow, one leg like
bent
and like slightly up at like a 90 degree.
Yep. Nice. You're a weird one.
Weird sleeper.
Front sleep.
But I'll move around many a time during it.
Oh, my back just hurts just thinking about front sleeping, but that's okay. Each to their own, whatever works. All right, let's go into, you touched just before on study.
Mm-hmm.
You have finished a degree. What have you completed a degree in?
I've completed a degree in sports and exercise science, majoring in exercise science.
Okay, and that was at UTS?
Yeah, University of Technology.
Cool. And what is next from that degree? Like, where do you go to from a work perspective or more study? What happens now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I've been sort of going over and considering over the last 12 months or so. I think it's opened a lot of doors for me. And given where I am in rugby at the moment, it's also forced me to consider options of what's gonna best suit me now and for future. So tossing up between studying more, so doing a master's degree in either physiotherapy or exercise physiology, along those. But also really keen to get out and get some work experience in the sports and exercise science field, potentially before those study options arise. But yeah, still sort of tossing up and figuring out what's going to be best for me in my rugby at the moment.
Yeah, but you have been accepted into a position in a Masters of Physio, is that right?
Yes. So
That you've deferred.
yeah, I've deferred I think twice now for various master's degrees in both physio and exercise physiology. So yeah, just sort of figuring out again, yeah, what's gonna be the best for me, and making sure I'm not spreading myself too thin, because I'd like to think that when I'm committed to something, or I've started something, that I want to be able to give myself enough time and that to focus on it.
Yeah. So you mentioned just then that you have deferred for a couple of reasons, and one being rugby. We make a lot of choices, I think, in our rugby journey at the moment, and I don't think it's always a negative. I think it's something that we should celebrate, because by choosing to prioritize rugby, be it for whatever reason, it's normally not for financial purposes, it's normally for the desire to be the best that we can be. Firstly, I'll ask you, why are you choosing to make, like, put the study and everything on hold to focus on rugby? So that's my first question.
Yeah. I think already completing that bachelor degree, I guess it's just given me a sense of, I know the realm of work I would love to work in, but I think whilst also knowing that that's the field, I don't know exactly yet. Nothing's super jumped out like, no, that's exactly what I want to do. So I think rugby has actually then given me an opportunity to be like, whoa, before I go into that, you've got this that you can focus some time and effort on, but you can, like you said, like you can have something outside of rugby too, like working, like getting a bit of work experience and trying different things before then jumping straight into that next lot of study.
Yep. And in terms of like your choice to focus, so you think that not you think, the reason you have delayed the study is more so because you're not 100% sure that the next study is what you want to do, rather than it being because of rugby?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, obviously when there's a will, there's a way. So if I knew exactly what I wanted to do and I was 100% certain on it, there would be people you can speak to through the different universities, and I guess other people who have gone through similar experiences, to figure out how they have been able to juggle, I guess, the two. So yeah, a bit of both, but definitely the main reason is just not knowing exactly what I want to do before jumping in.
And then my next question is, with your desire to sort of be the best rugby player that you can be, I know you've made a lot of sacrifices. Well, I was going to say through study, but you just told me that it's not from the rugby specifically, but you've kept your life in Sydney, and I don't know whether that was something that was always on the cards, or where your life may have taken you post university, but you've chosen to stay in Sydney, I assume, for rugby. You work a casual job, or you have up until now, to sort of fund your life and allow you to play rugby. Like, why have you made the choice to keep rugby as sort of the core part of your purpose at the moment?
Yeah. Obviously the love of the game. I absolutely love what rugby brings to my life. And I think it in a way, whilst university and moving to Sydney, I've created a life in Sydney, but for me to stay, it's because I've made so many friends through rugby. I have an amazing community and support system around me, as we've talked about just before, like through injury, through decision making and all that. I've had so many opportunities through this game that just encompasses everyone and anyone. And I think, it's sometimes it's hard to put into words why you love rugby so much, because I often say it's just this like weird, like it just makes sense, and it's a feeling that I've played many sports, and there's just something about rugby and its community that surrounds you with like love and confidence, and just something that you want to keep coming back. You don't want to leave it, and even if you do leave it, you don't, in a way.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah, I so agree. So you've come from Snappers. Got that right?
Yes.
So you come from Snappers, you moved to Sydney, you play for Sydney Uni. Talk me through sort of the journey of your rugby from Sydney Uni in 2020 through to today.
Yeah. So 2020, that year in the Jack Scott Cup, Sydney Uni had 2 teams for the first time. So obviously started off playing games in that second team there. It was actually COVID, I think. So I think I played my first game of 15s ever. That weekend COVID hit. It was back home to Coffs for a few months or so.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when I sort of I'd had a little taste. I'd spent a few weeks at training and then went home, and I was like, oh no, I'm really enjoying this rugby. Didn't really know too many people before obviously COVID happening, but I was like, oh, let's give this a go. So I remember COVID times, like trying to get a bit fitter and stronger and that.
What position were you playing at that stage?
Oh, at that stage I was jumping from a back row and then into the front row a little bit, but had no idea really the difference between the two, other than a scrum here or there. So yeah, and then we came back, finished off the season. I was playing in the second team, but also then just sitting on the bench for the first team.
Still dabbling between back row and front row?
Yeah, still playing a bit of both.
Jumping in lineouts?
I did jump once or twice in a line out. It was a little bit light back then, but nonetheless, I had chocks on.
You were an option.
Yeah, there's a photo of me actually in a scrum with chocks on at the front row, in the front row.
Classic.
But so then we won that year, Jack Scott Cup. Then played the
was that under Crystal Lewis?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the 2020.
Yeah.
And then played Chikaroski Cup. That was sort of the pathway through to the Waratahs that year. Played a few trial games and then got invited into sort of the train on extended squad. So that would have been the back end of 2020, heading into 2021.
Yeah.
From there, trained for a few weeks, I believe, and then heading into the new year, into the squad.
So part of the 30.
Yeah, part of the 30. And then once again, COVID. Our lovely friend COVID struck again right before our Super W competition 2021. After a massive pre-season. I remember that pre-season being quite lengthy.
Yeah.
So we're all pretty devastated about that. But I remember getting the message, you need to get out of Sydney now. We're heading to Coffs Harbour, out of all places.
Yeah, to your hometown.
Yeah, we're heading to Coffs Harbour for the competition. It's going to be 2 weeks. After a few cancelled games and whatnot in Coffs, got to debut against the Brumbies, which was quite surreal, being in the hometown as well, having my family there to watch was just unreal. Special.
I have to say, when we went to Coffs Harbour, like, we heard that the Queens of Coffs were there. We had yourself and Caitlin Leamy both in the team, and both of you grew up in Coffs, and I knew someone had said that there were flags or something of you guys, and when we drove down the street and there were legitimately like 15-meter high flags of Bre Hoy in this town, I was like, they literally are the queens of Coffs.
Oh gosh, you wouldn't have thought it until you saw those. Nah, I still don't know about that, but those flags were something else.
They really were.
Very confronting close up.
And it was so nice because as a team based in New South Wales who had, all fled basically the city to play in the Super W, that was that condensed season, knowing that we had a support crowd, and they were so loud, those Coffs locals, even though they were mainly cheering for the two of you, we knew that they were cheering for the Waratahs as well.
Team, absolutely.
And it was really nice to have that support, knowing that also most of our family and friends couldn't come to support because of COVID. So that was really special. Sorry, so I digress. So we make it to Coffs, you debut for the New South Wales Waratahs.
Yep.
Played that Super W. Won it.
Grand final, won against the Reds. That was a great game. And then what happens after that? I think COVID's still around, so it's after that it's like head home and then you're there. And then it would have been a few months off and then into the next pre-season. Fortunately, that was the year I did my knee. 12 months, was still training, still at all the games I could. But yeah, just obviously from the sideline. And then start of 2023, I think it was a trial game against Reds in Narrabri.
Yep.
One
in
of
the heat.
hottest games I've ever played in my entire life. Nonetheless, I think it was almost exactly 12 months since doing the knee. Came back. It was a good game, and then got to complete full. I guess my first full proper season with Waratahs. Losing in the semi-final to Fiji.
Yes.
Unfortunately. I'll have to change that this year.
Yes.
And then post Super W season, brought into the what is known as the pony squad at the time for the Wallaroos. Trained throughout the rest of the year with the sort of satellite training groups, the girls in Sydney. And then brought into the touring squad for the second Laurie O'Reilly game in New Zealand. And then, obviously being able to debut for the Wallaroos in the WXV.
And then if we go a little bit past WXV, which obviously is the pinnacle of like the trajectory of career in terms of, going from playing local club to Sydney club to state, through to making a Wallaroos squad, to then touring with a Wallaroos team, to then touring and getting your first cap in a starting jersey, and then continuing to play that series. Shortly after your time with the Wallaroos, another opportunity for rugby came up.
Absolutely. So it all happened pretty quick, but in the same sort of moment when I was being brought into the Wallaroos touring squads, an opportunity to come and play in Japan for the Mie Pearls arise, then I don't think I could have accepted it any quicker. Obviously a massive fan of Japan and the culture and the people themselves, but then to put on add on top to play a bit of rugby, was definitely not an opportunity I was gonna pass up.
Yeah, amazing. So talk to me about Japan. Talk to me about the rugby experience over here, being a full-time athlete for the first time ever,
Yeah.
earning enough money to be able to live and play in a country like Japan. Tell me.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, as you just said, first opportunity to be dedicating all your time and that to becoming a better athlete, and a better, I guess, person on and off the field, a better teammate. So yeah, being able to get this opportunity here, the Pearls rugby club, as you would probably agree, has just been nothing but great to us in terms of setting us up to be the best athletes we can be, and to sort of buy into the great culture and yeah, just team that they are here in Japan, and absolutely loved the experience. I can't believe it's going to be ending shortly, which is upsetting, but yeah, I think it's just it's added to the love of the game of rugby that I already have. It's been massively different to what I've known rugby as up until now. But we've formed some like beautiful friendships along the way too, and they've taught us so much in terms of, you know, playing on the field and off the field, that I think we're going to benefit from for the rest of our rugby careers as well.
Yeah, 100%. It has been a really special experience. When you came to Japan, did you have any, you may not, but did you have any goals or things you wanted to get out of being here?
Yeah, from a rugby and professional point of view, I wanted to be as, I guess, high performance or professional as I could. I wanted to start putting systems and, I guess, processes in place that I can then take away, regardless of if I'm fortunate enough to be in a professional position again or not. I think it was a great opportunity to see how I can push myself, and but also how I can work on my mental and emotional game. I think it's a massive part of sport, and I think it's not to be like lightly brushed to the side, but I think it's something that contributes massively to your performance, to your physical performance, but also just your love of the game and making sure you look after yourself.
Yeah, amazing. When you talk about that mental side, how do you have any techniques or anything that you've found has worked really well for you so far, or is it just still experimenting?
Yeah, still experimenting, seeing what, like, I think the biggest thing is just sort of knowing that, you know, if you're nervous for a game or not, or just anything to do with performance or not performance, or anything outside of rugby that might be on your mind, it's just knowing that other people are going through whatever you're going through or have an idea, and that, like, accepting it and just embracing it is one of the best ways to then move forward and go about it. And I think just having those support networks, and it can be literally just, I don't know what it is today, but I'm just not feeling it, but being able to admit that and then to talk about it and then to go with it, I think that's been a big one,
Yeah,
for me, just over the last few years.
Yeah, nice. And then but whilst we've been in Japan, you've also been offered a contract for Wallaroos, which is super exciting. We don't need to go into detail on the contracts, of course, but knowing that you're going to go home and potentially be financially supported by rugby, or you will be financially supported by rugby more than you have been before. What do you have envisaged or in store for yourself over the next year or two from a rugby and then life perspective? Like, how do you think your life is going to adjust to being in Australia in a similar opportunity to how you are in Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still something that's obviously sinking in. It was, I mean, you asked me a year ago, and that was like a massive dream and goal, but I couldn't have like envisioned it at the time. So yeah, definitely still sinking in. But yeah, it is those like small financial pressures that, you know, you might not have to wake up at 4 a.m. to do your job, to then go to training that night, whilst many people still have to do that. But it's just like those small little things where you can prioritize, say, recovery, or many other things to like build your rugby game. But yeah, I think whilst the money isn't going to change my performance on the field, it's going to allow me to dedicate time and yeah, mainly just that time to then be the best athlete that I can be.
Yeah, how exciting. It really is a huge opportunity that I think Australian rugby hasn't ever had from our 15 side. And so looking into the next 2 years and beyond, rugby in Australia is in a really cool position. And I am sure that the girls are not thinking the money is what's going to change us, but it is exactly as you said, it's that opportunity to value our time and use our time more specifically and more intentionally for rugby, which I think is what's going to be the biggest change. So that's really exciting. If I lead you into now, and you've already demonstrated many examples of when you have taken a chance, but have you got a specific example that you'd like to share with us of when you have taken a chance and it paid off?
Yeah, absolutely. The first and main one that comes into mind is just moving my life to Sydney. I think it was a chance, because whilst I had family members here, I didn't have any friends who were moving to Sydney as well. So it was a bit out of the comfort zone in terms of that. I was living with strangers, so again, I think I was taking a chance, even turning up to a rugby training session. I was moving to Sydney. I think that was a time in my life where I needed to take these chances, and I think it opened up my eyes to getting outside your comfort zone. And if you do take a chance, there's no right or wrong. Like, it's going to lead you somewhere. Sometimes it's going to be great, sometimes it's going to be average, but it's going to work out, kind of thing.
Yeah. And your chance from moving from Coffs is really, it's because being in a small town, you don't necessarily know what else is outside it, right? So even if you took a chance and moved to Sydney and you didn't love it, you would at least know what else is out there. So you're still learning, even if it's not as we perceive it to be necessarily successful, but you're still getting a learning experience. And I think that is half of what taking a chance is. It's not that taking a chance leads to the right or there is no correct answer for what a success is, but taking a chance is allowing yourself to experience something different and then grow from it. And that's pretty cool. And think how different your life could be if you had decided to stay in Coffs or not take that leap to move to Sydney, and then also maybe take that leap to join Sydney Uni. Thanks, Pop.
Thank you. But that's 100% it. And I, like you said, it's just by putting yourself in that. I mean, I could have very easily not enjoyed it, maybe not even probably absolutely not, but hypothetically, if I hadn't enjoyed rugby and I hadn't enjoyed my uni experience in Sydney, that's the chance. Like, I could easily then go home and create so many other opportunities for myself, or that is like on par, but there's none better or worse. So it's just that happened to align with what I love to do, and here I am now.
Nice. And you definitely don't want to die wondering. You don't want to stay where you are and stay safe, because staying safe and thinking about what's on the other side and never actually looking or trying it.
Just trying. Just like all the foods over here. You got to try it. You got to try it once.
Have an open mind. You may not like it, but at least you now know.
Absolutely.
And then when has someone taken a chance on you? And then the second question to that, or second part to that question is then, and why do you think they did it?
That one's hard because I think so many people have taken a chance on me in my life, and I think that's through I can put that through sports, like does a coach trust me to do my job on the field, or then you can go to work or uni, or that someone's taken a chance with me even when I was injured. Is she gonna be able to complete sort of that sort of stuff? And I think, but I also think, like, coming back to taking a chance on moving to Sydney, I think I've taken a chance on myself quite a lot, and I think that's, yeah, I would say that would be probably my main
Cool.
chance, is me taking a chance on myself, to opening my eyes to what's out there, and I guess uncovering lots about myself and who
Yeah.
I am, and I'm
Yeah.
always growing, and like there's so many opportunities and things that I haven't
Yeah.
experienced yet, but I think as long as I'm giving myself a chance and taking a chance on myself, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah. And so why do you take a chance on yourself? Because you believe that without the experience you'll never know, or like what's the, do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. I think it comes down to, like, when I did take a chance to move to Sydney, I sort of uncovered all these, like, things about myself, what I was comfortable doing, what I wasn't, all that sort of stuff. And I think it's personally, this is just completely personal, I think that's something now that I love to do. And I think whilst I haven't changed as a person, it's changing me and opening my eyes up to the things I love to do, and creating new friendships and that sort of stuff. And I think it's changing me for the better, in a way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And what I love so much about you is that I think the perception is that you are quite sure of who you are, and you're really comfortable with who you are. And I think that so many people in this world spend so much time trying to please other people that they get a bit lost with who they are and a bit fake. And I always get the sense that you're so content, not just with your own company, because it's not that you like to spend lots of time alone, but you are someone who knows who you are and knows what you value, and therefore you're not super worried about how someone else might perceive it.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome to be around, because it sort of makes you check yourself. You know, you're like, oh, I said yes to that because everyone else said yes to it, not because I actually want to do it. And I really love that you are sort of so in tune with yourself and so content with yourself that you can make those decisions to be different, because it's actually just what you want to do, not because you're trying to be different, not because you're trying to be, not go with the flow. It's literally just like, no, I'm not interested in peer pressure, or I'm not interested in following the norm because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so I really love that about you, and the fact that you even chose that you yourself is the person that takes a chance on yourself.
Yeah.
I love that, because it's quite introspective. Like, you've thought about like the intention behind you making your own choices and taking your own chances, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think when I I forgot where I was actually completely
I did just notice it started snowing outside too.
I'm sure it's gonna be great.
I've got one more thing I just want to ask you about. So I know that you mentioned it, but I know you watch a lot of rugby and you watch a lot of sport. Well, you watch a lot of sport. You watch a lot of women's sport.
Yeah.
And men's sport, but you do watch a lot of women's sport, and you're really quite knowledgeable on sort of the current results of, be it the PWR, be it Super Rugby or the French League. Like, you watch a lot. how, like, why do you watch it firstly?
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I was just saying at the beginning of the podcast. Like, there's something about sport that it makes sense, and I absolutely love it. Like, I I growing up, I almost get obsessed. Like, if I've just like turned on a tennis match and like the Australian Open or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not like I've never really played tennis. I love the idea of it, but I've then watched one match and now I'm enthralled by it. Like,
Yeah.
I've I've sort of picked up on the rules, whether I know all of them or not, definitely not,
Yeah.
but I've picked up on the rules. I'm invested in these athletes, not just of their physical performance, but the way they then hold themselves off the field, whether that's in front of media or then, yeah, I don't know what it is. And yeah, it's I've always been able to also I think I have a relatively all right memory and that sort of stuff. So yeah, when it comes to sport, I think I love doing it and I love like just watching it. So
Yeah, it's really cool. Would you say you have like quite an analytical eye when you watch it? Like when you watch tennis, are you watching how they take the shots, or are you watching it for the entertainment?
I
Because
oh
I feel like you
n-
pick up like here's my interpretation
yeah.
is you because you're a fanatic, you then are watching it for entertainment, but you I feel like you pick up the strategy and the technique. So if you're watching a game of football or soccer, for example,
Yeah.
like you see the game, but you see how they've like manipulated the defense. And then I feel like, and I may be reading into this too much, but then you pick up a sport quite quickly because you watch the analytical side. So it's not like you might not have the best ball skills playing soccer, but you understand that like if I draw this way, I'll bring a player which will create the space for them to be able to pass through. So like you kind of, and I see it in the way you play rugby a lot, is like how you're like almost playing a game of chess. And I don't know if it's because you have strategically and like decided that that's how you're going to do it, or if just you've seen enough times this works, so I'm just going to try it. Oh, and it does.
Yeah. I would say I definitely don't go into watching sport being like, oh, they've done this and that. Like, it definitely is not something I'm conscious of when I'm watching. However, I think when I watch, I'm subconsciously picking up on these things. And then I think in terms of what you were just talking about, I think with all sports, basically, I've never been the fastest, fittest, strongest. So I think potentially, again, subconsciously, I'm picking up on these things that don't require those physical attributes.
The no talent required parts.
Well, yeah, yeah,
The attitude.
basically, yeah, to then how I can sort of still keep up and do those similar sorts of things, but also know my own strength. And, I'm not going to be absolutely barging through, palming 7 people off. It's just not me. So yeah, I guess I think that's one of the things I love about sport, and you can almost pick up things from different sports and bring it into your rugby game. And yeah, it's never intentional. Like, I don't sit down and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna bring these parts. It's just because I love it, I happen to pick up on those other things as well. So yeah.
Not one more, I've got a couple more questions. So I know you have been maybe quite an avid watcher of, what's it called, behind the line, on the line, the English, sorry for my poor knowledge. The Red Roses inside line. Were you an avid watcher of that a few years ago, maybe last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the last few years or something, just starting to get into rugby, that was something I was like, oh, this like behind the scenes, like just that look in, because I wasn't quite into like I would say Tars environment or Wallaroos environment or anything like that yet. So it was just this other opportunity for me to sort of get an idea of what it is like, not just what you see in a game, but what they're doing behind the scenes, not to then say that whatever's on me in the media is exactly
Yeah.
how it is, but I think it's such an important thing, especially in the women's game, regardless if it's in your country or not. Like, being a little supporter of rugby after the 2016, I didn't care who it was. I just wanted to see these women athletes and how they were doing it and what they were doing. And I think for me, I probably don't, they're like the celebrities for me. I'm not looking at, celebrities and wondering
Like
what
Miranda
they're doing.
Kerr,
And,
what's happening in
what's
her.
happening with them.
Yeah.
These are like the celebrities for me and
Yeah.
the people that I want to be sort of following and looking at. So yeah.
That's really cool. Sorry, I don't know why I brought that up. I just wanted to understand. I suppose it's in the theme of watching sport, and then to me, like, that's never been the show that's I've wanted to watch. I'm like, I'll watch them play, and watch them play. But I love the reasoning behind why you watch it. And I don't think I'd ever asked you, so I was just curious.
Just curious.
Sorry. 2 final questions from me, and I do promise that they are the 2 final questions.
Right.
Firstly is, do you have a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think I've said it before, but sort of after I was playing rugby, I came across this quote, and I'm not much of a quote gal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not many stick on me, but this one really did, and I think it would be perfect for my sort of younger self. And it was something along the lines of, it's better to fail in the pursuit of something you love rather than to not have tried at all.
Yeah.
And I think when you're younger, you get so caught up. Well, personally, I would get caught up in
success,
worried that it wasn't going to be successful, it wasn't the right thing, it wasn't what other people were doing, therefore I'm just gonna not do it or not say something or not try it, and then I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's been many opportunities where I've taken a chance, and that sort of like opened my eyes, and that quote has really related to me, not only just in rugby but in my life over the last few years. Definitely.
That's a good one. It is a good one.
Yeah.
Because we do spend so much time, I think, like, society does tell you subtly, like, success is important, and we forget how many times people fail before they are succeeding, and we only see that shiny, polished piece. So it is important to remember, like, social media and sport, like that, I think it's LeBron James has said, like, I've missed 1,000 shots before people have seen me get them in. So it's like, you don't, just because we see this shiny end piece doesn't mean that there wasn't thousands of failures before. So if you're failing and you're loving it, you're always going to get better.
Yeah.
Because you will find your own success. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it applies to the smallest of things as well. Like sending a message to someone, like before you might have been like, oh, I don't know if they would want me to send a message, or even if it was like, how are you going? But I think even in the smallest of things, that quote applies to my life, and I think it helps me grow a bit.
Yeah, I love it. And then the final question is, what is something that you're doing, be it reading, listening, watching, that challenges you or makes you think that's outside of rugby?
Outside of rugby,
I mean, I can think of an easy one that you do every day at the moment.
Oh, watching that podcast?
No, learning Japanese.
Oh, yes. I have actually, I love to learn, but studying a language, I never thought that would be in my, like, that's something I wanted to do. I think throughout school we got the opportunity to, but I was like, oh, I'm not bothered by this. I'd rather be doing PDHP or history or any of the other ones. But yeah, since being here, and I don't know if it's because of the connection of like the friends we've made, and just wanting to get to know these great human beings around me and communicate with them, and seeing how much they would like want to communicate with us too. I think it's really ignited this love for wanting to learn a language, but then also like following through, and not just a phrase like hello or goodbye, how are you going and what are you doing today and how are you feeling kind of thing. So Yeah, loving that.
What, did you have another one in mind? I'm sorry, I sort of gave that one.
No,
to
I was
you.
actually thinking, and I was like, wait, what is she saying? No, but yeah, absolutely. That's my main one. And I think that's something I'm going to carry even past this experience, because these friendships and that we've made, I don't think they're not going to finish with our time here. Like, they're family.
Yeah, it's lifelong.
Yeah.
And I think also when you've got a passion for learning in anything, it's really nice to keep driving it. And it is something that takes you away from being a rugby player, which can be exhausting. It doesn't, I don't want to be melodramatic. We love what we do.
No, absolutely.
But there is a time where you've got to stop thinking about it, and to be able to pull yourself out and be like, I'm just going to do like half an hour of language learning or whatever it is. Like that's, I think it's really important to have that little passion project on the side.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's been quite evident as rugby does start to amp up, and you do dedicate more time in that, you just have those little windows or dedicated times and spaces that's just for you and what makes you happy outside of rugby. So yeah.
Amazing. Bre Hoy, Woody, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to everyone enjoying and telling me how much they love this podcast too.
What have I just said?
Wasn't too painful.
No. I don't even remember what I've just talked about.
Thanks so much, Bre.
Thanks for having me.